Good morning, everybody. Did everybody have a good holiday break? Yeah, little relaxation. I hope you did do a little bit of studying. So today's our last day as a class. So I know you all aren't sad to see this 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning go, but I hope you did feel like you got something valuable out of the experience. So today, what I really wanted to do is I want to finish up with our interviews with some former actually Caitlin Berkoff is a current Golden Eagle. She's graduating in December, well, in a few days. And then talk a little bit about research with Dr. Donahue. That'll finish up our research coverage. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about course evaluations, okay? I'm not trying to poison your mind about course evaluations, but I do want to give you a sense of what faculty think. Okay, I want to give you a faculty perspective on course evaluations so that as you're filling them out, you'll have a better understanding of how a faculty member may interpret what the scores mean and what your comments may mean. And I'm going to give you a little information about who actually views your comments. Okay, and it's not just the faculty member. So I want you all to be prepared to do very constructive evaluation. So let's start off with the interview with Caitlin Berkoff, and I thought we would just play through that one a little bit. Okay, well, welcome, Caitlin. I'm glad you're here to talk with us with our Chemistry 108 students. Just a little bit of background. Chemistry 108 is the new course that we have for new majors. So throughout the semester, we've been interviewing folks like yourself and showing those interviews with our students in Chemistry 108 so they can get kind of an idea of what it's like to be an upperclassman, so to speak, in chemistry, and talk a little bit about your experience. So, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, awesome. My name is Caitlin Berkoff. I am a current ACS chemistry major and a public health minor, and I am a senior undergraduate student as well. So I will be graduating in December of this year.
Wow, just a few weeks away, actually, right?
Yeah.
You'll be a graduate with a degree in hand and ready to go off out in the world. That's fantastic. So I wanted to start off by asking you why did you choose chemistry as your major?
I chose chemistry, so starting from a young age, I always had an interest in science. So me and my dad would watch Bill Nye every day when I got home from school, and I always was interested in questioning the unknown. And it wasn't until I took high school chemistry that I found I can still do science and still do math and kind of take my own path on research. And so when I got here, I started out with a chemistry degree, but I really didn't know what kind of options there were out there for me. My stepdad is actually a chemist himself, so that kind of also paved the path for me. But once I got here and I got involved in research, I really figured out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
All right, fantastic. And so when did you start here at USM?
I started in the fall of 2018.
2018, okay. So that probably sounds like a long time to you, but it's really not, right? That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like years, like 10 years ago, but it's really not that far away. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. It was just yesterday, and now you're getting ready to graduate and go on to bigger and better things, right?
Yeah.
So during your time here, you've been involved in a variety of undergraduate research projects, I think, with Dr. Donahue. So you want to talk a little bit about kind of what it's like doing research as an undergrad? How long have you been doing research, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. So I do research with the Donahue Research Group, and we're an organic synthesis group. The project I'm doing is mostly on nitrogen heterocycle synthesis, and I actually got started in this project in also the fall of 2018. So I have been here pretty much since I started college. That was more on my own, so I kind of reached out to different people and be like, hey, I know we do research on this campus. Would you be willing to let me shadow and kind of seeing what doing research as an undergraduate looks like? So So I started in December of 2018. So I was still in general chemistry when I got to a research lab. And so that was definitely a big step, being in an organic synthesis group, being in general chemistry 1. But I would say it definitely has helped me, especially with like being able to do hands-on research and learning the chemistry that way while also learning it in my classes. So I would say research has been an integral part of like my learning in total.
Yeah, fantastic. You know, one of the things that I get from students in Chemistry 108 from time to time, because students have to do activities, a lot of them will attend like a departmental seminar. And a number of them will say, you know, it was interesting, but I was kind of intimidated because I didn't really understand what the so-and-so was talking about. So did you experience that as you transitioned, you know, from being a freshman to all of a sudden being a freshman undergraduate research student, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so my first couple weeks, I was really just shadowing a grad student, and they would explain the project to me. I'd be like, I don't even know what a heterocycle is. I didn't even know how nitrogen bonds work. I don't know anything more than just like something can bond to one other thing, but when you start getting to these big complex molecules, it gets very advanced. So I did experience a little bit of that, like frightened when you get into a research lab, but it's more of just knowing that this is a welcoming environment and knowing that they want you to learn as much as you can. So even though you might not understand it now, everyone here is there to help you, and you definitely like get used to it and you start learning things that will enhance you further on, because I learned, for example, NMR before I took organic. And so it has helped me in my studies. So yeah, it's definitely frightening to begin with.
Yeah, no, and that's normal, right? I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
listening to somebody speaking a foreign language. I mean,
Yeah.
in parts. You're picking up words and pieces, but the whole sentences may not make a lot of sense to you. But, you know, I do think it's important just to immerse yourself into it. And you know, now when you look back on it, you're probably like, yeah, that was easy, right?
Yeah.
But it's easy once you know the answer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
But, you know, I really want students to know that they shouldn't be intimidated about getting started in research, that the faculty really are interested in helping mentor them through that entire process. So
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that. Now, you also, if I remember right, early on in your undergraduate career, you actually went and gave a talk at a CERMAX meeting. And I believe you also got a Goldwater scholarship, right? So you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about those experiences?
Yeah, so I can kind of lay out the timeline. So I started research 2018. By the summer of 2019, so I went through that spring semester doing shadowing. In summer of 2019, I was actually able to get like a paid research assistantship over the summer to do research in the Donahue group. So I would come in every day and do research, and that was definitely an integral part in completing my research and really learning, because it was just me, one other student, our grad student, and my advisor, and that was all that was in the lab. So definitely very hands-on during that time. And then by, I think CERMAX was in October of 2019. So that research I did over the summer, I was able to present at CERMAX. And that was very scary, especially because it was in Savannah, Georgia. And so you're traveling, I've never been to Georgia to begin with, so I'm traveling to an unknown state, giving my first research presentation. I'm a sophomore in college. I'm currently enrolled in Organic 1, and I'm giving an organic synthesis presentation. So I mean, it's scary, but that like presentation set the standard for all my following years, and I've now presented at 9 different research conferences. And so, yes, 9. Yeah, it is a lot, but it has definitely, like, I think I'm going into grad school with more of an edge because I have all this research and presentation experience. And so I'm pretty much a better scholar because of my experiences. And so about Goldwater, I applied in 2020, and Goldwater, if y'all don't know, it's like one of the most prestigious research scholarships you can get. And it's for engineering, mathematics, natural sciences, and you apply and they make you fill out a personal statement and a research essay. Those are the 2 big requirements besides just like your general like name and extracurriculars and stuff. So I applied in 2020 and I didn't end up getting the scholarship, but I was able to get some edits back and I reapplied in 2021, and that's when I was awarded the scholarship. And so just having that really gives me an additional edge to apply to grad school, because you're following saying like, I am a Goldwater scholar, I have earned this, and so I have proved my research ability. So I will continue doing this great stuff at your university whenever I go to grad school.
Yeah, fantastic. So, the Chemistry 108 students, we have the director for the Nationally Competitive Scholarships Office come and talk to them all about the various things. But of course, for Chemistry 108, we really do focus an awful lot on the Goldwater, and we're very proud of the number of Goldwater scholars we had, including you, of course.
Yeah.
I think you're the most recent Goldwater scholar for the discipline, and so yeah, we have a long history of producing good Goldwater scholars that go on and do great things, and I know you're going to be one of them. So we're very proud of that. So you also, a number of our students, however, don't go on and do internships. You did. Do you want to talk a little bit about, how you found the internship, where it was at, and kind of what you did and what you learned from your internship experience in chemistry?
Yeah, awesome. So I did a internship this past summer. It was with Gilead Sciences, and it was supposed to be in person. So they're based out of Foster City, California. However, COVID kind of threw everything off, and it was a virtual internship. So this was I still had a great experience. I found the internship actually through Indeed. So yeah, so I went on there and just Googled chemistry internships, and a whole bunch of them popped up. I think I applied for 4 or 5. I also had the option of doing an REU as well as opposed to an internship, but I wanted to long-term go into academia, and so I knew I would be getting all this experience at universities. Let me see what it's going to be like maybe working for a pharmaceutical company, and seeing if I'd rather go do that or just how I can use that experience to further my academics or my career in academia. And so I did a internship. I keep saying research and internship combined. I did my internship with Gilead Sciences, and I was with their drug substance regulatory strategy group. So it's also a little bit different than what I currently do. So they are in regulatory strategy, which is kind of the back end of the pharmaceutical drug process. So they're the ones that file the patents, apply for market applications. But I work with a team of about 7 process chemists, so they're all trained in organic chemistry, but they're looking for more of a desk job, so they've all done the hands-on, and they're actually I want to retire and go do this hands-on stuff. So they basically look at all of the drug screening, and they look at process impurities, and they file the patents based off of that. And when you file for a market application, commonly you'll get questions back being oh, well, we see this impurity. What is it going to be like when it actually goes into your body? Is it going to be toxic? Could it be mutagenic? So my project focused on a way to basically categorize these mutagenic impurities and rank them on a scale on how they would react in your body, and if it's something to worry about or something that is not going to cause a lot of harm. And so I went through and wrote a guideline on how to do that, and it was a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of looking at, it was 2 different drugs that I focused on, but a lot of looking at their laboratory and their manufacturing scale and seeing how these impurities went when they're on a small scale versus a big scale. And so I think this experience, although it's not what I currently do now, I think it's greatly enhanced my knowledge of just overall chemistry and how what we do here can translate later on and how it moves down the process line. But it was very interesting. I had an amazing time, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone.
So this was a paid internship?
Yes, I did get paid. I got paid $28 an hour, and it was virtual, and they sent me a computer, a keyboard, pretty much anything I needed. So I sat in my room for 8 hours a day and got paid. So.
Wow, fantastic. So, of course, it would have been nice to go to California for a summer, but COVID certainly has gotten in the way of a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. So you're thinking about moving on now to graduate school, right? You're in the application process right now. Do you want to talk just maybe a minute about your strategy for identifying which graduate schools that you've kind of targeted for applications?
Yeah, a lot of the grad schools some of them would reach out to you, just like having your name out there, going to different conferences. Being a Goldwater Scholar definitely has helped because your name is in this like big poll of being like, these are the best researchers in the country right now. And so grad schools usually reach out to you by that. I did my own research. The biggest thing I would say is look for professors that you want to do research under and don't focus as much on the school. Because grad school, you're going to be there for 5 years and your job is to do research. So you want to make sure that you are happy in your research group and you have, when you're doing your rotations, you have 3 or 4 different options of professors to look for rather than just going to a school and be like, I want to work for this one professor, and you get there and it's not what you expected it to be. And so that's the first thing that I look for. The second thing is just like general like housing situations, because I mean you're going to be living on your own most likely, and so just cost of living generally. I actually had the opportunity to go to Rice and Purdue, and for their grad school, before the applications were due, they had like a diversity visitation program, and so I was able to do that and kind of get a feel for those schools as well. And then a lot of them also do like virtual open houses, and then reaching out to faculty also helps. So I've been able to narrow it down to about 6, I would say. Grad school applications can also be very, very pricey. So I found out like you can reach out to the faculty or the admissions and ask for a fee waiver. I know if you're also a McNair Scholar, they pay for your grad school application. So that's definitely a benefit. If you qualify for that, I would definitely look into it. But yeah, that's just some of the things. I kind of have this big master spreadsheet of like this school, this is when the application's due, these are the faculty, and then you sit in. So, and definitely starting early because some of the applications don't open until like August or September, and then they're due in December. So you only really have that 3-month window to apply, but there's a whole lot of research that goes into it. So,
Okay. So, I guess we'll kind of wrap it up here with the final question. You covered a lot of material, but if looking back now, so now you're a senior getting ready to graduate. If you could go back in time and talk to your freshman self, what piece of advice would you give yourself that might be beneficial to our Chemistry 108 students?
Ooh. Focus on your classes and try to absorb as much material as you can because it all overlaps on each other. You might think like, oh, I'm never going to need physical chemistry, and then you're like, oh, actually physical chemistry has a lot to do with organic. So definitely absorbing a lot of the information, knowing that your professors are there for you and they want to see you succeed. So not being afraid to ask them questions or ask for help. Reaching out to other students as well, forming study groups is one of the best things you can do, especially with other chemistry majors, because you will be, as you move up to upper level chemistry courses, it's the same like group of 5 students that move along with you. And making good friends with other majors as well. And we have a really great student chapter of the American Chemical Society on campus. So definitely joining that helps, and getting connected with other scholars just to talk about like, oh, I heard you're in this research group, how is that going? And then really just having a shoulder to lean on as well with your peers.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy.
All right. You know what? I always hate watching myself and listening to myself, and I never really realize how much I say fantastic. But apparently I say that a lot. So, well, I guess that's fantastic. So I thought, Caitlin's interview was very informative, right? You're seeing somebody that's getting ready to graduate, knowing kind of what that next step, if you're thinking about graduate school, might be for you. And I think she gave some excellent advice. She is definitely an example of somebody to try to emulate if you're trying to look for a peer, somebody to strive to be like. I think Caitlin is certainly, in that class of people that I would say, here's an example of someone that you might want to think about emulating a little bit. I mean, she was obviously very ambitious, got started early in research and moved forward. That doesn't mean you all have to do research starting tomorrow. I'm not trying to suggest that at all. It's not for everybody for that length of period. And it may not be compatible with your career goals to do that much research. But, you know, just thinking about all of the experiences that she's had, right? I mean, she never went to Georgia until she did research, right? Research got her to Savannah, Georgia. Was it Savannah? Anyway, I was at that meeting. I can't remember where it was located. And CERMAC, she talked about CERMAC. CERMAC is the Southeastern Regional Meeting of the American Chemical Society. It's one of the more enjoyable meetings to go to. You get people from all over the Southeast region. Next year, just to let you know, CERMAC is actually held in Puerto Rico. So if you're doing research with a chemist and you're thinking about wanting to travel somewhere, Puerto Rico is not a bad place to go. I went, well, it's been maybe 10 years ago now. I went to Puerto Rico and went to the CERMAC meeting there, and it was great. Nice little trip. Kind of feels like you're getting away from the United States while still being able to spend dollars and not have to worry about any kind of issues. So it was a very enjoyable trip. You know, I think Caitlin's talk really transitions nicely into the research with Dr. Donahue. I'm not going to show that one. You all can certainly watch that on your own. Dr. Donahue, you heard about a lot of what he does through what you heard from Caitlin, but he is an organic chemist, and he is one of the faculty members that will take students a little early, quite frequently. He has another student right now, Damien, who was in my 108 class last year. Okay, so basically in your seat where you were, I went to the CERMAC meeting again this fall, which was in Birmingham, so not quite as far. So I was able to make a quick drive there. And Damien was given a talk on his research that he had done similar to what Caitlin's experience was. So Dr. Donahue is certainly well known for taking students in early, mentoring them through a research project and actually getting them involved in those types of activities. Those types of things are going to make people like you and people like Caitlin extremely competitive for graduate school, right? I mean, through her research, Caitlin was able not only to go to 9 different research conferences and give presentations, which are now on her CV. You know, she won a Goldwater Scholarship. Again, we've talked about that in the National Competitive Scholarships Office here. Very, very important. I have full expectation that Caitlin will get accepted to each and every one of her graduate schools. And I also have every expectation that she'll probably get a National Science Foundation Research Fellowship, which pays, I think, a little over $30,000 now a year for you to go to graduate school as your salary. You can live on that. My daughter's in the Northeast going to school. She's on an NSF fellowship. And even there, she's able to afford everything she needs to do off of that fellowship, and she doesn't have to pay tuition. So, you know, that is one of the benefits of graduate school versus medical school. Medical school, you're going to be in debt. Graduate school, you can be debt-free. Now, having said that, a medical doctor is going to make a lot more money in the future, but you can actually make a good, strong living being after graduate school. No doubt about it. All right, I want to talk really quickly about several things that you need to know about course evaluations. You all may have heard of Rate My Professors. How many of you have heard of Rate My Professors? Okay, I just want you all to know professors don't give it any credibility whatsoever. Okay, I go in and look at Rate My Professors from time to time. I like to see what people are saying. I do take a few things from it. But nobody at this institution will look at a Rate My Professors page and go and tell an administrator, here's a concern, right? It's a third-party website. It's, you're not even sure that those folks are your students, right? I mean, I could literally go out on Rate My Professors and rate all the professors at USM however I wanted. And there's just no checks and balances with that. And so, if you feel the need to go out and use Rate My Professors, it's perfectly fine. But the audience here isn't your professor or the university, it's your fellow students. Okay? So when you all are thinking about, hey, I've got 10 sections that I can choose from this, for this history class or whatever, I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at the 10 different professors and I'm going to see what is out on Rate My Professors. That's what it's for. Okay, it's for you to communicate with your fellow students, not with the professors, not with the university. Okay, so I just want you all to know, if you've got an axe to grind, nobody at the institution is going to take Rate My Professor seriously. Okay, because we don't even know if it's you as a student who's taking it. There are several stories of people that have gone out and written some really inappropriate things on Rate My Professors who weren't even students, that they were just trying to cyberbully somebody, and we certainly don't want to be in that boat. So feel free to use Rate My Professors, but in my opinion, you're kind of wasting your time if you're really trying to communicate with your professor and the institution. But if you feel like, hey, I had this really great experience in a particular class, I want students to know X, Y, and Z about it, Rate My Professors is a great place for you to do that. Okay? How many of you have actually used Rate My Professor? A few of you. Okay, good. Just want you to know what it really means. Okay? Now, I know some of you have filled out these course evaluations in the past, so we won't spend a ton of time on it, but I'm going to show you kind of what things are from a faculty perspective. So every faculty member at the institution has this digital measures account. At the end of the semester, when all the grades have been turned in and everything is done, we upload all of the professors' scheduled teaching into digital measures. Okay, so they know they have all of their coursework that's listed in there at the end of the semester, and they also get their course evaluations. Okay. Now, we went through and revamped the course evaluation a couple of semesters ago to make it a little more relevant. Okay. Now, I'm just going to pick on 392 because it's only had one student. We only have one student in 392. Usually when we're teaching, it's a research course. Okay. And this is obviously for me, but this is the report that a faculty member would get at the end of the semester. Okay? And you can imagine if you're in a class teaching 150 students that you'll have a distribution of scores, right? Not on this one because it's only one student, right? But this is how a faculty member gets this information, right? They see the question that you were presented with, and then they see how many students or the frequency of the students marking strongly agree to strongly disagree with that question. They cannot track this back to you as an individual in terms of the score. However, at the end, you have an opportunity to make comments. Faculty are not stupid, and they can track that back to you if you give them the right tools to do it. So when you're making comments, you don't want to put your name in the comments, okay? I've had that happen before. You really want this to be anonymous, okay? So just be kind of careful with that. But they couldn't click on anything and say, oh, that was definitely that student. They can't know definitely, okay? I just want you all to know that, all right? So we get all of this statistical information. We know how we performed on that particular question. We know how USM as a whole ranks on that question, how the college and how the school that we're in ranks on that question. And so faculty do look at it. How am I doing relative to the peers here at USM? Okay? And so when you fill this out, you really want to fill this out in a way that is not a popularity contest. Oh, I really like Dr. So-and-so, so I'm just going to give them all 5s. You need to provide constructive feedback, okay? And, you know, if you all didn't feel like I did a particularly great job on one thing or another, let me know, okay? That's perfectly fine to do. I'm not going to lose my job over that, okay? But I do, as a faculty member, I take what you tell me and I use that information to build my class better next time. We're always in a state of continuous improvement, right? Nobody's perfect. So it's a good idea to give people constructive feedback on things that you think they've done well, things that you think they could improve upon, okay? This is not really the place for you to grind an axe, okay? And I've said that more than once. And why is that? I mean, if you really hated a professor, why should you just not go on a diatribe? It's too late, isn't it? If you really had a serious axe to grind during the semester, you needed to go see the school director. You needed to talk to your faculty member, right? You needed to do those types of things. At the end, during this period, it's too late, right? Your axe isn't going to be heard very well, right? This is really about continuous improvement. And so be professional in anything that you comment on, because if you're professional about it and it's constructive criticism, your faculty member will be more likely to take that to heart and to try to make improvements in the future, okay? So you're going to get a whole series of questions, and you're going to get these for every class, okay? I do want you to know that people do look at them. It's not a waste of your time, okay? But you want people to take your stuff seriously, so definitely be professional. So, the instructor is considerate of the students. That doesn't mean that you like the professor, right? It means, was the professor considerate? Did the professor take time to hear students' concerns? Did the professor treat you with respect and dignity? Those types of things, right? And so if that is true, you need to mark whether you strongly agree, or whatever the case may be. This is how social scientists do their work. Strongly agree. I'm a physical scientist. I go, what does the difference mean between I agree and strongly agree? I don't really know what that difference is. I agree with you. I strongly agree with you. To me, it's one and the same thing. But if you feel the need to mark something strongly agree, definitely do that, okay? The subject matter is delivered in a clear and organized manner by the instructor, right? So, and you'll notice in parentheses it puts the name. If you're in a class that is team taught by more than one instructor, you have the opportunity to fill one of these out for every instructor, which can get to be problematic for you in terms of your time. I understand that, right? Tests and other requirements cover the course description in the syllabus. Okay? Again, it's not about, I don't like what we covered in the class. It's about, this is what we said we were going to cover in the syllabus. This is what we did. Are those the same thing, right? Just because you didn't like a particular assignment, you can't, you really shouldn't, you can do whatever you want, right? But you really shouldn't go, I strongly disagree. I'm going to grind an axe on this, right? Because it's not helpful, okay? High academic standards. That is a term that means something different to everybody, right? So when somebody says, if you had to go answer this question right now for any class, what would high academic standards mean to you?
I had to work for my grade.
You had to work for your grade? Okay, that's a legitimate point of view. What's another one? You could actually work hard in a class that has very moderate academic standards, right? Academic standards don't necessarily mean it's tough, okay? Academic standards means I have certain student learning outcomes that I want in this class, and I have worked hard to make sure that students have achieved those as a faculty member, right? I wanted you all to get out of this that there are things that you can do with a chemistry degree, that there are resources on campus. Those were the academic standards. Now, I wouldn't say that those were high academic standards for this particular, because of the nature of this class, right? But those are the things that I hope you got feedback on and I helped you work through, right? So those would be kind of the things that faculty are looking for there. Follows the grading system outlined in the syllabus. Again, look at the syllabus, Did we kind of follow? Yeah, we had reflections, we had notebooks, we had attendance, we had all those. Yes, ma'am.
Would a grade be
If a faculty didn't give you a syllabus?
He gave us a syllabus, but it didn't like outline anything. It just like listed rules.
Then my suggestion would be for you to, in the comment section, to comment on that. And you could actually mark here, maybe you might want to mark that as neutral or even disagree. And then down at the bottom say, for question 5, I'll mark this because the syllabus really didn't contain anything beyond policies and rules. I really didn't know much about the grading system or whatever. So you can follow up with commentary at the end. This is a very important one that not only faculty but directors look at. We want to make sure that your instructors are available for consultation and assistance. That does not mean that we reached out to you all asking you to come in for individual consultation, but when you requested, was the faculty member receptive to you having that individual consultation, okay? Lectures, discussions, demonstration focus on the material outlined in the syllabus, right? So I told you coming into the class that we were going to cover these topics. Did I or did I not cover those topics? Not whether or not you liked how we covered those topics, but did we cover those topics, right? So it's not about how effective did I do that. That's other questions. But did I do it, right? So did I focus on that material outlined in the syllabus? The results of tests and assignments are returned in a reasonable amount of time. Reasonable means something different for everybody. Okay? What does reasonable mean? I'll just tell you what my definition of reasonable is. And that is, did I give you a midterm grade? Did I have enough feedback for you at midterm to assign a midterm grade? That kind of thing. Not did I get it back to you the next day? Okay? I know I'm behind on some of my grading. I expect my scores here to be a little lower, and it's just the way that one is for me. Okay? And you will actually have some classes where this actually is irrelevant. And in this particular case, the students shouldn't have marked this one because this was Chemistry 392. It was Introduction to Research. We had no assignments that had to be graded and returned. It was all about just being in the lab and getting your feet wet with research. So when I look at this one, I go, it's really irrelevant, right? In this particular case. Textbooks and or required materials support the course objectives. That's a very important thing to mark. Faculty need to know whether or not you are actually using the materials. Faculty are under the assumption that we put out materials for you all to use and that you are using them. So if you're not really using them to support the class, let us know, okay? It's helpful information. Taking time to answer questions. Obviously, did the instructor just talk for 60 minutes? Or did they pause and ask for questions? Did they ask you to engage through the Socratic method? Those types of things here, right? 10 and 11. You'll notice that these things are kind of related, right? We kind of clump these things together. So I might look at this question and this question together as an administrator, right? This one is one of my more important questions that I always want to look at. I want to make sure that students are getting what, I'm trying to not only teach you the facts, but let you know why the subject matter is important, right? And so we look at that one quite a bit as faculty, or at least I do. Okay? Uses examples, right? Did I just sit up here and go through PowerPoints, or did I actually use some real examples? Did I help you work through things? Very, very important. Overall rating of the instructor, okay? This is the one that a lot of faculty will just gravitate on, okay? This one, to me, is kind of, what does it mean? Overall rating. I don't really know what it means, right? Because you could have 5 faculty this semester and you give them all 5s, right? It's not a ranking, really. But in terms of how you have interacted with other faculty and other courses, if you think about it, would you go and recommend that faculty member to a friend? And if you went, yes, it should be above neutral, And if you said absolutely not, it should be below neutral. And if it went, yeah, take it or leave it, that's kind of the neutral place, okay? Overall rating of the course is not about the instructor. It is about the course. What you got out of the course. Did it help you? Did you find it useful? Right? This is where you're going to mark for the course. The estimate of how much you learned in the course. This is really you self-reflecting. You know, it's not just, well, I think it's a 5, I think it's a 3, whatever, right? But did you come away with the course knowing things that you didn't know before? If the answer to that is yes, I would say it needs to be above neutral. If the answer is no to that, I would say it needs to be below neutral, right? Is kind of how I look at that. So if you think you got something out of the course and it was worth your time, it definitely needs to be scored, I think, above neutral, okay? Stimulating your interest in the subject. Again, this is a question that you can mark. It's again related to the other questions that are there. Effectiveness of the course challenging you intellectually. You know, a course like this wasn't a very intellectually challenging course. I didn't ask you to solve a lot of math problems, right? Or anything like that. So this should not be at the top of your heap for challenge you intellectually, okay? Now, there are some questions that are here that are as a result of COVID. I'm not sure that you will find them on your course evals this semester or not. But that's what questions 19 and 20 really are about, if they are appearing this semester. And the reason is that we needed to demonstrate to the Department of Education that we were not doing correspondence education. Correspondence education is where an entity gives you materials and says, good luck, we'll see you at the exam. It used to be the old mail courses, right? Mail-in courses. We don't do that at this institution, or at least we're not supposed to do that at this institution, okay? And so we needed to demonstrate that. And so, because a lot of things were shifted online that were normally face-to-face, we needed to know if faculty regularly led interaction with students, you know, through using discussion boards or doing live chats or holding Zoom review sessions or having live Q&A sessions. That does not mean that everything had to be live. You could have things on chat boards within Canvas that would satisfy. They instituted some sort of session with you. It doesn't have to be live and verbal, okay? And then, of course, maintaining at least one virtual office hour. Again, this was because of COVID. And then, of course, at the end, you have the place to put your comments. If you take the time to complete a course evaluation, and I hope each and every one of you do for each and every one of your classes, please leave some comments to put your scores in context. You do not need to justify every score you gave. But if overall you ranked a professor relatively high, put some comments in there as to why that was the case. If you ranked the professor relatively low, put some comments in there that back that up. This is where administrators will spend a lot of their time, is looking through these comments. In fact, our institutional research office scans these for troubling comments to some degree. Okay? Do we see anything that's really standing out as a real problem? Now, a particular student in a class of 100 may have something that they have an axe to grind, and you've got 99 students commenting very favorably and one student with an axe to grind. We usually just kind of move on with that. You can't make everybody happy all the time. But that doesn't mean that your comments aren't taken seriously. Okay? We look at it in the totality. But when we start to see a course with lots of troubling comments, the school director usually starts to get involved, because faculty have to present these things for their annual evaluations, and that's where these things are discussed. They're not necessarily discussed the day after class is over. Okay, so I just want you all to understand that. Okay, are there any questions about course evals? It is your opportunity to really provide feedback. It is part of the shared governance structure at the university. Does anybody know what shared governance means? At this institution, because we are a state institution, administrators like myself do not rule the roost. Okay? We manage things, but shared governance means that faculty, administrators, students, staff, all have a say in how this institution performs. This is one of the ways. Now, you all have student government, and that's part of the shared governance model as well. I believe your student government president is actually on the president's cabinet. And so you are part of the shared governance structure. So this is one of the ways in which you can communicate as individuals in the shared governance structure as well. Any questions about any of that?
One of my course evaluations, and it looked different than that.
It looked different than that?
Yeah.
Well, that is what the faculty will see when it's all conglomerated, okay?
Some of them have to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So there's different stuff.
Oh,
I'm sure there are some different ones for different courses and things like that. But in general, that's going to be kind of what you see. Okay. And there are some questions that if you answer yes to that end up asking some additional questions. It can be I don't want to say a long slog, but if you're taking 5 or 6 classes and you're doing this, and then if you throw in, oh my gosh, I've got one that was taught by 3 professors, it can be a fair number of evaluations. And it's coming to you at a time that you're preparing for other things, right? So we understand that. But please try to make some time to complete the course evaluations. Last thing that I want to talk about, this is your last week of class, obviously. Next week is your finals. We've already talked a little bit about preparing for finals. I hope you're in that mode already. If not, you really need to get into that mode. I also want to mention to you that this can be a stressful time for many students. I want you to understand that there are things that you can change and there are things that you cannot change. The things that you cannot change, you need to let go. The things that you can change, you need to do something about. At this point, you can still change the outcome of your final class grades. You still have time to make a difference, right? That's what you need to be focusing on. What can't you change? You can't change the fact that finals is next week. You don't need to be worrying about that too much. Be prepared for it, but don't overly worry. Worrying just causes stress, and it solves as many problems as trying to solve an algebra problem by chewing bubble gum, to quote an old 90s song, okay? So if you find yourself overly stressing, I do want to emphasize that the university has counseling services that are available for you all. Those are available on the web. We talked a little bit about those early on in the semester. Do not be afraid to use those services. Do not be afraid to reach out to your faculty if you need assistance and help at this point. It is not too late to get help and assistance. In fact, if you are missing any of my homework at this point, you have until Friday to get it to me. After Friday, I'm finishing up my grading and I'm going to be done, okay? So, because we don't have a final next week in this class, right? So, Friday's the last day of this week, and I'm going to consider that the end point. So if you missed a reflection and you want to go back and do it, you can. It will come with a late penalty, but a points are better than 0 points, right? So continue to think about that. So that's still available until 5 o'clock on Friday. After 5 o'clock on Friday, I'm shutting her down, getting all the grades in and going to be done with it. So, for today's attendance assignment, I need you all to get out a sheet of paper, print your name on it. and write a little bit on how you feel you're prepared about going into final exams. You can put it on the end there on your way out. I wish you all the best of luck this rest of the semester, and I hope to see you in the future. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.